The incidence of bullying and Asperger's syndrome on school children. What is Asperger's syndrome? Asperger's syndrome is an autism spectrum disorder, one of a distinct group of complex neurodevelopment disorders characterized by social impairment, communication difficulties, and restrictive, repetitive, and stereotyped patterns of behavior. It was first noted in 1944 by Dr. Hans Asperger, who was an Austrian pediatrician who studied autism and recognized a variation in children that he termed with autistic psychopathy. Asperger's is part of the autism spectrum of disorders, which also includes pervasive developmental disorder, high-functioning autism, and Rett disorder. There's no specific cause of Asperger's, but it has been found to run in families, and boys are 4 times as more likely to have Asperger's than girls, which does suggest a genetic variation. In the autism spectrum of conditions, we can view it as a rainbow. On one end of the rainbow, we have the high-functioning autism, the Asperger's, and the pervasive developmental disorder, which shows the higher IQs and extreme abilities. And as we move across to the other end of the rainbow with the classic autism, we see the learning disabilities begin to become more severe and the communication disorders become more prevalent. Some common behaviors in Asperger's children is they may exhibit odd or abnormal verbal communication skills. They may avoid peer relationships or lack interest in others. They may fail to return emotional feelings. They form obsessive attachments to subjects of interest. They have repetitive behaviors or movements. They generally don't experience delays in language or cognitive development. They're often very curious about their environment and things in it, and they're often exceptionally gifted. They do have difficulty with these subtle social interactions. They often can't read the social cues such as eye contact or body movements. Therefore, they don't give the right social and emotional responses back in communication. They can lack the desire to share information and experiences with others. They're often alone, and they're more noticeably different among their peer groups in the unstructured settings like the school playground. And because they're naive, that often causes them to be bullied and teased. Children with Asperger's often have preoccupations and rituals. They're often very narrowly focused. They're routine-driven and react poorly to changes and transitions. They often memorize schedules, lists, and details. And one of their favorite passions is collecting, stacking, and sorting by size, shape, color, lining things up, stacking things vertically is one of their more common trademarks. Children with Asperger's may have an unusually sophisticated vocabulary at a very early age. They're often known for using words that are much larger than their age group should be. They do have a limited range of intonation. Their speech may be overly fast, jerky, or loud. Their speech may convey a sense of incoherence and often includes monologues about topics that often bore the listener. They have difficulty understanding metaphorical language and tend to use language literally in a more of a concrete fashion. They have a particular weakness in the area of non-literal language that includes humor, irony, and sarcasm. Their conversations are often hard to maintain, and they do often dominate the conversation. In an example of the literal interpretation, as they interpret the language literally, in this example, we have Dr. Sheldon Cooper from the TV show The Big Bang Theory, where we may say, in springtime, love is in the air. Well, an Asperger's person is going to say, wrong, nitrogen, oxygen, argon, and carbon dioxide are in the air, not love. They do often have coordination problems. They may be delayed in acquiring motor skills that require dexterity. They may be poorly coordinated. They have an odd or bouncy gait. They have difficulty with the finer motor skills, such as using scissors. They often have poor handwriting. They fatigue easily in tasks that require that type of fine motor coordination. And they do have a problem with their sensation of body position, where their body is in relation to other people and objects. They may be unusually sensitive or insensitive to sound, light, touch, texture, taste, smell, pain, temperature, or other stimuli. You often hear of people that have the itchy tags in the back of their shirt. With the Asperger's people, this is one of their similar problems. They may notice things that we often don't: the ticking of the clock, the buzzing of the fluorescent light. It may be extremely bothersome to them, or they may not notice it at all. This is often a problem when it comes to problems of temperature or pain. They may not realize that they were injured as critically as they might have been. Overstimulation in any of these areas often results in what's called an emotional meltdown, which can result in anger, throwing, fits of rage, crying, screaming, because they're unable to filter out all of the stimuli at once, because they're unable to process it all. It hits them like a load of bricks. Asperger's children are often seen as social outcasts, largely due to their inability to read the complex cues from others. Combined with their strange movements, their encyclopedic knowledge, their limited scope of interest, and their odd preoccupations, this unfortunately sets them apart from the crowd of the normal kids, and anyone that's been there knows that in the school environment, different is bad. They are often deemed as the weird kids, the weirdos, the geeks, the misfits, the nerds, the dorks, the retards, the quirks, or the losers. Many children with Asperger's syndrome are teased, isolated, victimized, and socially excluded by their peers. Studies suggest that children with Asperger's are at risk for internalizing their problems, and as many as 65% have comorbid psychiatric disorders such as depression and attention problems. According to the USA National Center for Education Statistics, bullying can be broken down into two distinct categories. Direct bullying, the physical aggressions such as shoving, poking, throwing things, slapping, hitting, punching, and indirect bullying, more of a social aggression, the verbal, the name-calling, silent treatment, arguing, gossiping, starting rumors, giggling, laughing, saying a certain word that'll trigger a reaction, and mocking. There's a distinct cycle of bullying in Asperger's children. First, the child is deemed the odd child. Children with Asperger's often don't report bullying because they do mistake it for genuine interaction with their peers. Asperger's children already have emotions that are running at a high level. They tend to wear their hearts on their sleeve. The bullies quickly learn what sets the Asperger's child off. The bullies and peers find it funny when the Asperger's child starts to melt down, gets upset, starts crying. This then provokes the bullies to induce a more aggressive meltdown, knowing exactly which buttons to push. The Asperger's child often acts out, but the target of their anger is not directed at the bully that started the issue. It often comes out inappropriately, possibly at the teacher, a parent, a sibling, who takes the brunt of the anger, and then this repeats the cycle again. There are many sobering statistics when it comes to the bullying of Asperger's children. In a study conducted by the Teachers College at Columbia University of 34 parents with Asperger's children between the ages of 5 and 21, they found that 65% had their children had been victimized by peers in some way, 47% of the children had been hit, 50% were scared to be around their peers, 9% were attacked and physically hurt by their peers, 12% of the children had never been invited to a birthday party, 6% were always picked last for teams, and sadly, 3% ate lunch alone every single day. And here we have a pie chart exhibiting the amount of children with Asperger's that have been bullied. In this same study, 37% had not. 63% of children had reported that they had been bullied. 43% of this bullying took place in regular public schools, as opposed to 18% in special ed schools. The children currently being bullied by their spectrum diagnosis, only 28% of truly autistic children are bullied versus a whopping 61% of children with Asperger's. So in conclusion, that we can see that bullying is an extremely, unfortunately, common in the lives of the children with Asperger's. And it's crucial that educators, providers, advocates, parents, and families are able to put the pieces together to know what's going on and to be able to prevent the bullying and be prepared to take any steps necessary in order to help their Asperger's child succeed.